Are you prepared, and the rest of the squad prepared, to use that kind of veto power that you have if you vote as a bloc?
Democratic Congresswoman and member of the quote-unquote squad, Cori Bush, was on CNN where she was asked about force the vote. More specifically, are her and progressives in the House willing to withhold their vote on a bill in order to improve it? This is something that often conservative Democrats like Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema do, where they simply say they will not vote for something, and that forces Congress to then change what's in the bill. But progressives so far have been unwilling to use their power to do the same. So Abby Phillip of CNN brings up this question.
Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia has essentially, used what seems to be a veto power against a lot of progressive priorities, including some of the ones that you've mentioned. But in the House, Democrats have this 2-seat majority. There are 6 members of the squad, of which you are a part. What's stopping you from flexing that same power for your agenda? You just said you would vote against a compromise on qualified immunity. Are you prepared, and the rest of the squad prepared, to use that kind of veto power that you have if you vote as a bloc?
I'm prepared to do whatever is needed to make sure that that our agenda moves forward. But I can't speak for the rest of the squad members. At the end of the day, my sister Ayanna Presley says it all the time. You vote alone, and you're voting for your districts. So you're voting for the people who voted you in.
All right. I'm going to get to my thoughts on Cori Bush's response here in a second. But first, I just want to acknowledge that this question came from CNN. You have here essentially CNN pushing a progressive member of Congress from the left. This almost never happens. The questions to progressives like Cori Bush, AOC, and others is always, oh, what will make you compromise on this issue? Why won't you compromise on this issue? Like, it's always about compromising their positions to move to the right. But here you have CNN actually asking, why won't you or will you use your power as a bloc the same way that conservative Democrats like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema use their power as a voting bloc? Let's hope we hear more of this because this is at least part of the equation in terms of what it will take to move progressives in the House on this issue. Now, let me first, so at the beginning of this clip, you hear qualified immunity brought up. So another part of this discussion, Cori Bush discussed how she will not compromise on getting rid of qualified immunity, which essentially protects police officers from civil lawsuits. So she won't compromise on this issue, which is great. But that's one vote. So that one vote means nothing if you're not partnering up with others in the House to vote as a bloc to ensure that getting rid of qualified immunity is a part of any future police reform package. And this gets into her answer. At the end of the day, you vote alone? But I don't even know how to respond to that. No, if you care about power, if you care about changing things, you should not be voting alone. You should be voting with others. Now, yes, your votes represent your districts, but whether you're talking about Cori Bush in Missouri, whether you're talking about Ayanna Presley in Massachusetts, whether you're talking about Jamal Bowman or AOC in New York, these are representatives that all represent a multiracial working class. That's who they represent at the end of the day. So this idea of voting alone or voting for your districts doesn't make any sense when you all share values. You should be voting together to ensure that bills are either stopped because they're bad or stopped because they need to be improved. If you're just voting alone, you're not going to accomplish anything. So this may just be a bad answer, but I mean, Cori Bush, obviously it sounds like she feels like this may be an idea worth exploring, but I'm not sure if they haven't discussed it or if she doesn't want to discuss what they've discussed internally or whatever. But the answer here clearly is not the right answer. You have to use your power to vote as a bloc. Now we get to the other issue that is always brought up in this discussion, and that's the real difference between these progressives and the conservatives. So people like Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema, they're willing to torpedo a bill to get what they want. So that is a different outlook than what progressives have. When it comes to, say, infrastructure, I don't think these progressives are willing to completely torpedo the infrastructure bill if they don't get what they want. Meanwhile, Manchin, Sinema, they are. So when it gets down to it, that's the real divide here. Because yes, they can and they should use their power in the House to stop a bill to improve it, but is it going to get to the point where it's essentially a showdown with Manchin, Sinema, and other conservatives, and they will also use their votes to stop something that they feel goes too far in their mind? And it could get to the point where they'll just say, well, I'm not going to vote for this, and you're going to end up seeing progressives compromise because they still want to see something done on infrastructure. So this is the issue they run into, which is why if you're going to commit to voting as a bloc against something to improve it, then they have to really commit to it. And they have to be willing to torpedo a bill the same way that Joe Manchin, Sinema, and others are willing to torpedo a bill. And I don't know if they have that in them. But just so you understand, the entire debate here, the entire discussion, it's not as easy as just voting against something to make it better, because you still have to deal with the conservative Democrats in the Senate and in the House that you're going to be up against when you're trying to vote as a bloc. But my argument here is you have to at least try. They haven't tried yet. And to be fair, there haven't been many opportunities up to this point to do this. But the infrastructure bill is one opportunity. We're going to see future opportunities. They should at least be willing to try this strategy and see what happens. But from the sounds of it, it's not something, at least right now, that they're taking seriously.